Hello, friends. Hello, listeners. Hello, viewers. A warm welcome to all of you to yet another episode of the series that we're running around BlueVerse and Agentic AI. I'm your host for today, Ramesh Revuru. I'm the Global Engineering Head, BlueVerse at LTIMindtree. And today, I have a guest that comes with tremendous amount of experience in the AI and Agentic AI space. My dear friend Harry Wang, who's the Chief Growth Officer at Sonar. Sonar requires no introduction as a name that is quite popular in the developer community. And Harry is at Sonar driving AI strategy. More importantly, he was also part of an important acquisition that they've done called AutoCode Rover. With that, let me warmly welcome Harry to this podcast. It's always a pleasure, Harry, talking to you.
Thank you, Ramesh. It's a great pleasure to join the podcast and to have the chance speaking with your audience about AI.
Thank you, Harry, once again for accepting our invite and coming forward to share the wealth of knowledge that you carry in the space of agentic AI and AI. I would, if I can request you, Harry, I know you were with Google Cloud and then joined Sonar. If you can explain to our listeners, viewers, the roles that you played at these companies, your journey in particular, that would be a real great starter, Harry, if you could share your experience.
Yeah, sure. So I've been with the Sonar for roughly 20 months in the role as the Chief Growth Officer. And prior to that, as Ramesh, you alluded to, I spent over 12 years with Google in various different capacities, ranging from product management to business development. I must say that Sonar, as a small company, when I joined, I had a degree of freedom I felt with a smaller company. As you can imagine, with a larger company at Google, and obviously on the day-to-day basis, Googler have a lot of opportunity to make a worldwide impact. At the same time, then you do have many stakeholders to work with, and that's something at a smaller company. Oftentimes, we much more nimbler, and also like my colleague like myself, wearing multiple hats all at the same time. Like just in the chief growth officer's role, I do corporate dev. I also lead the team managing our business development. At the same time, I work with engineers and product management colleague on innovation and product growth. So that's a degree of freedom for myself. And also, as an engineer by trade, I really enjoy to work with the developers, and both inside Sonar and as well as with the 7 million developers Sonar is serving.
Amazing, Harry. Freedom, that's the word, Harry. That's something that as engineers we all love, both in terms of the code that we create to the work that we do at companies. And Sonar is the company to be at. You absolutely, I think the kind of agility that you've been showing. And that's also the reason why we at LTIMindtree felt the need for us to create this BlueVerse as a brand and as a unit that can focus on agentic AI, so that, like you've said, we bring in that agility, that nimbleness into a large organization that otherwise, might take time to move in the direction. Thanks for that introduction, Harry. If I can switch gears, I know there's a lot of talk about agentic AI. So I'm going to take your help in demystifying a portion of that. We recently launched an article series called we call it the future of, as in the future of a project manager, the future of maybe a marketer, the future of probably a CXO, executive leadership, etc., etc. And I happened to write an article as part of that series called The Future of Project Manager. The belief is that in the near future, to even now, companies are talking about anywhere between 20 to 50% of the code being generated by these coding agents, the virtual engineers. And hence, if you have a team that is a mix of virtual engineers plus few human software engineers. Probably the project management itself is going to change in that sense. The kind of capabilities that are required, maybe the manager has to become more of an AI whisperer to maybe an AI orchestrator, and hence you have a team of some who are virtual engineers who do not complain to work over the weekends. Two,
Yeah.
you have the other members, whether it is 50% or 80%, that also needs to be taken care of. And hence, you probably have a situation where it's a combination that's going to exist for the near future.
Mm-hmm.
And hence, how do you see this entire space of the software engineering develop? Where do you see the software coding, etc., heading?
Yeah.
Harry, if you could throw some light on that.
Yeah. Ramesh, I like the subject, the future of off. I think as an industry in software development, we are all trying to figure out as we go. I speak for myself, I speak for Sonar, but also just this is what I've seen from our clients and the users and the customers. If you look at actually a typical software development project, it involves developers, involves product managers, involves project managers, as you call refer to, and but also the stakeholders like your client, your customers, and who might be actually the source of a lot of requirements. And with AI, with agents, in each one of these roles is going through a period of time where we're seeing rapid iterations on what does it mean to be a developer? What does it mean to be a project manager? The day-to-day activities are actually changing in front of ourselves. The actual very value propositions that we can bring to the table are also evolving with the help of AI. And the coordination, the boundary of the different roles are also adapting. In different companies, different organizations will arrive at this one at a different time. And then there are some patterns out there emerging. But I think as a whole, that as an industry, we have not come to the kind of a finish line yet where we say, we can point to this is the best practice. This is actually how you organize your software development, and how the the human workforce and the agents can work together. So I think that's the preamble I would add as like we're trying to figure this out. Now into the project manager specifically, I will have share my observation. I think each one of the developer is a core audience of Sonar, so I have more interactions and the experience insight into their day-to-days. I think each one developer, in a way, also actually start playing project manager role, or in a way that they actually start orchestrating their day-to-day workflows, how they interact with their peers, how they interact with the agents. There's a lot of the traditional tasks you actually want to code it by yourself, whether it's writing a unit test or actually, taking a design spec and then translating into code and then being able to test it end to end. Those activities are decomposed into individual components with the tools like BlueVerse, right? You have agents that can actually handle certain parts of those certain individual tasks within that software development lifecycle pretty actually competently. Now, the role of a developer in many cases is actually how do you pick and choose the right helper, the right agent, and more importantly, how do you guide them with the right specifications, with the right set of tests, so that you can know, so these agents can be more autonomous, and then the developer in this case can step back to really thinking through, okay, what is the job to be done? What do we need to deliver in day one, week one, and what is that ultimately actually how the project can evolve to meet the requirement from the client, right? So in the macrocosm, that's used very much like a project manager, and I'm sure like there are areas where project manager, product developers, UX designer, their roles are quickly evolving as well. In one example, in our internal some of our project, our UX team and front engineers are working very closely. Sometimes you see front engineers are playing UX role. Sometimes you see UX designers start actually dabbling in prototyping the UX, the front end implementation. So the boundaries is really blurring at this moment in front of ourselves.
Well, that's an amazing and interesting perspective. Harry, can't agree more. The lines are blurring. like you rightly put it. One topic that has caught attention in the recent past and probably has become as popular as AI as a term is vibe coding. And hence, I definitely want to use the opportunity to get your expertise and guidance in terms of what's happening there. But before I seek your inputs, one of the most humbling experience that people have been talking about is this bug, which is referred to as the big phantom bug that at one of the customer places has been unsolved for close to 4 years, and the supposed to be the hardcore techie with 30 plus years experience trying to fix it, spending 200 hours at various point in time. Somebody who's sort of the brain sought after in the company for any guidance on a particular programming language, only to be humbled by this experience of when he or she fed this big phantom bug that sort of evaded their technical expertise in getting it resolved, to one of the coding agents coming back and talking about one of the architectural changes that was done, leading to the bug in the first place, and how the approach could be to solve that particular bug for. And hence, even people with that kind of experience are now being humbled by what the coding agents can bring. So your thought process in terms of these coding agents, how they're evolving, to also your perspective on vibe coding.
Yeah. Excellent. So I think in that particular example, there is there's the two sides of the same coin, where AI can be tremendously helpful to the discovery. In this case, the discovery of old bug that was the team was never able to identify properly. But at the same time, we also, at least especially in Sonar's business, we deal with the bugs, issues, vulnerabilities all the time. And we also just observe the AI agent model themselves actually producing new kind of a risk at the same time. And in fact, we recently introduced a series of state of the code report to go into the details on how the model actually behave in different dimensions, whether it's actually security, whether it's actually general quality or complexity of your code, and more importantly, how one model differs from the other model, right? So I'll certainly I can pass along the link to those reports for your audience in case they're interested in learning about those. So it really comes down to education for developers, for organizations, project manager to understanding the behavior of the AI, the behavior of the agents, the behavior of the model itself, but also with the prompts, with the different system environment, the system will behave differently as well. So understanding where AI thrives really as a way of complementing human capability, and where it falls short and requires governance, require a level of verification from a human in the loop, and being able to really actually establish the standards for the organization so that you can have a repeatable success is really important. In the case of actually where AI really actually outcompete in many ways for individuals, or sometimes outcompetes the team on the whole, I personally think that discovery is one area. Like it's not surprising that, to be honest, we've seen early in this year 2 Nobel Prizes were won by computer scientists. This is not if, this is really just a matter of when, and that when it happened to be this year. So I think in discovery, where there's only finite amount of a human intelligence on the planet, but in a way there's an infinite amount of intelligence that artificial intelligence can gather and grow into the future. It's a matter of time where we'll have the AI being able to actually tackle, discover new frontiers. And in this particular case, in our space, it's really about bug is actually one specific, small area. But I imagine for a problem statement, being able to understanding the nuances around business logics, being able to translate those business logic into alternative way of implementing, in providing that suggestions for human to make judgments, for team to actually debate and contemplate. This ideation is the ground that's fertile for AI to be able to contribute to. At the same time, we as a society have many different places where reliability, security, and accountability are crucial, because life is at stake, business sustainability is at stake. In those cases, we used to have a very rigorous discipline on how we ensure the security, how we ensure the trust in that system. That needs to be really, we as an organization need to think about, what does that mean in this age of AI? Where are the checkpoints? Where are the control points? And how do we bring that to the agentic first type of software development?
Great, thank you. Thanks, Harry, for those thoughts. In fact, there is, even at LTIMindtree, tremendous amount of focus being given to how do you ensure that from a secure agentic implementation standpoint, more responsible. Also, how do you make some of these accountable? Because at the end of the day, as enterprises, for some of the actions, decision taken by the agents, you also want to ensure that there is accountability. And how do you ensure that any drift that is happening in terms of the actual decisions and the actions that are being taken by these agents, how do you measure that? How do you ensure that you're able to, from an accuracy standpoint, stay closer to your outcomes and goals that you want to accomplish? A big thank you for bringing that wide perspective, Harry, to that discussion. If I can now request you to talk about the partnership that both the companies have had. And I remember, Harry, talking to you first time when we met, we said there is tremendous opportunity for both the companies. Sonar is a name to reckon with in terms of code quality, code remediation. So we were also started discussing about how when you have in production on the fly code being generated by agents, how do you ensure that you're able to apply the same level of quality measures, same level of code remediation measures on top of that? And that is where we were able to take the discussion forward in terms of, while, we can have the standard partnership, how do we also evolve this into some sort of a relationship where we can build in terms of what the future demands could be? And that's how I relate to this entire partnership, the conversations that we've had. So I want to use this opportunity to request you to give us a preview into what Sonar is thinking in terms of, you are the leaders in the human generated code, but I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things lined up in terms of the code that's generated by agents as well. And how can we put that additional layer of certificate on that code? And your thoughts there, Harry?
Yeah. First of all, I'm very excited as Sonar that about being part of the BlueVerse ecosystem. Sonar as a company in the business of code analysis for 16 years, we are all about the code. We are the specialists and experts in code, understanding deeply the structure of the code, the issues one may have in the code, and being able to bring that level of insight to the developers, to the organization, so they can actually take proper actions. So we're doing this in many different parts of the software development lifecycle. With the AI, we also start expanding the scope of what we do, where we actually look at code. From the model itself, really understanding, as I indicated earlier, how different models behave when they generate code for different type of a task, and bring that level of understanding to the CTOs, the engineering teams who may actually at the position to choose actually which model to use. But you mentioned drift. Also importantly, on an ongoing basis, understanding when the model upgrades, how all the carefully crafted tests, carefully crafted prompts they have in the IDE, in the CLI, and in various different stages of the software development by the agents, how they're going to behave differently. So that's where the understanding of the code from Sonar is tremendously helpful. We believe it can be tremendously helpful in this age of a model verification and agent verification. And then secondly, the bread and butter of a Sonar business, Sonar Cube, had been traditionally a verification and assurance through automated code review for the organization to ensure the quality of the software, and in this case, at the level of code, at the code level. And with the AI, what we're seeing is really a gap is emerging and actually growing between the volume of code that AI is actually producing, and then the organization, the team's ability to verify those code. So we like to bring more verification into the bread and butter of what we do in Sonar Cube, so that more team can establish the standards across the organizations for the software development and making sure those standards apply, whether it's actually AI generated code or human generated code. And then lastly, we also taking a step further from just actually detecting the issues in the code to really helping the organization burning down the list of issues, right? Remediate all the issues and fix the issues on the fly. So that's the set of tasks we go very, very deep into, but it's focusing on the creation and testing stage of the code. Now, we don't pretend that Sonar will be able to solve this software development problem or software. For example, how do you actually translate business requirement into design requirement? How do you take the design architecture requirement to be able to actually orchestrate that through the development stage, testing stage, verification stage, and releases? That's where LTIMindtree is a great partner for us to really be able to bring our value into the ecosystem, into the sponsors and the organizations that we're ultimately are trying to solve a business problem with technology.
No, absolutely, Harry, and that's what makes this partnership special. And all the conversations that we've had have been in the direction of how do we help each other, how do we help eventually our customers. If I can draw your attention to something in terms of, I'm going to request you to do some crystal ball gazing, but before that, if about 35 different LLM models got launched in the last 6 months, I could be wrong, but somewhere in that range of LLM models got launched, each model claiming their superiority over the others. And if the time that it used to take for these models in terms of one version to another version was about a year, so now about 2 weeks back, 5 different LLM models got launched in just a week's time, meaning literally almost every day one new LLM model is getting launched. While that might lead to some confusion, there is at least confidence being generated as far as customers are concerned in the direction of standards and some specifications, protocols evolving with the likes of MCP, A2A, etc. So there is, if Anthropic has come up with MCP, there are 50 now technology partners who are saying we support MCP, same is the case with A2A. I would request your thought process around where do you see the next 2 years of this agentic AI space evolving, in terms of, if you had to help us see that future. It's a difficult task with the pace at which things are happening, but I think with your experience background, if you can provide us that guidance, that will be supremely helpful, Harry.
Yeah. The biggest challenge I think facing the agent adoption today are the ability to measure and validate the output of the agent. That's one area. And the second one is really how the different agents from either the same vendor or provider or from different parties actually collaborate. You mentioned MCP, A2A, those, the current protocols in place and with various degrees of adoption success, right? But I think that being able to really establish a standards, but also actually establish the common set of abilities within the standard on how agents should actually allow the other agent or the human user to discover their ability, being able to summon those ability in the prescribed way. And it's very critical for the ecosystem to really actually support the businesses that we're looking into. Specifically, like for example, in the case of Sonar, we recently introduced MCP. I think that's a baby step. It's a baby step in terms of just making the Sonar Cube's capability available to the agent when we detect the issues. The agents out there, whether it's a Cursor, Cloud Code CLI, the BlueVerse ecosystem of agent you have, and also some of the internal agent we built, they're able to really take those input and being able to really automate those on the fly, and then really actually fixing those issues in many cases, or providing suggestions. So this has become a part of that interactive workflow with the developers, or become an automated workflow in the background. That to me is actually a baby step, but it's already bringing giant impact. But going one step further, I will also imagine the agent will evolve into places where they can take a more step of these one and do it in the autonomous way. Right? If you think about actually how we transitioned from just not that long ago from AI code assistance, where the developer is actually chatting with the AI in a very interactive way, getting code snippet as an output, but then in many cases have to actually copy and paste the code back into the IDE, back into the editor, right? And then we quickly evolve into the agent being able to take multiple steps. Oh, actually, I can just actually go ahead suggesting here's the code that you can check into your code repository, and this is the kind of test you can run. Do you want to confirm, right? So this is already a giant step in automation. I can see this is actually, we can continue evolve, pushing the boundary. The more validation we can automate in the way, whether it's a functional testing, or it's a unit testing, or it's other type of testing, or security and quality verification, like what Sonar provides, right? The more assurance that we can bring that capability, the longer chain of tasks that we can delegate to the agent. So those critical, the concept is, might sound actually straightforward, but the key enabler is actually how these agents, likely from various different providers, are actually able to communicate just like a human developer need to talk to each other to figure out how do we actually accomplish some common goal.
Absolutely, Harry. I think that it is like you've summarized in essence where the things are today and how they're shaping up in the near future for the agentic AI space. And that does bring us to the end of this particular episode, Harry. A big thank you to you once again, and Sonar for being our partners, and also joining the episode today, sharing your perspective and the future direction in terms of where Sonar and the platform is heading, but more importantly, also where the agentic AI space is heading. A big thank you to you and to all our listeners. I hope you found this quite useful. Please stay tuned for the next episode of BlueVerse Podcast. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Ramesh.